Next question comes from Shelley Fox. I'm not a big fan of science fiction, and since you are, do you have any recommendations as to what I should read or watch that might get me more interested? A gateway drug, so to speak. I'm generally too practical for science fiction or fantasy, but I have the feeling I'd really enjoy some of it if I could get into it. Well, Shelley, if you don't generally like fantasy, sci-fi, good for you. There's certainly a place for it, and Star Wars, without question, is a fantasy story. There's virtually no science in Star Wars. Star Trek is far more scientific than Star Wars, but Star Trek is not exactly what I would call like hard science fiction. It's getting there every day, I have to say. I think your man is probably Arthur C. Clarke, Shelley. There's Rendezvous with Rama is a terrific sci-fi story. It's a very practical, hard sci-fi story. Just about everything Clarke wrote was really, really good in that regard. Then I think I could recommend Rendezvous with Rama. Childhood's End is Childhood's End's not so much hard sci-fi so much as Childhood's End's got the best twist in it of any book I've ever read, and is really a profound look at human nature and human evolution, where human evolution is heading, and Childhood's End really gets into something that's always interested me, and that is, we see this. I won't give away anything in Childhood's End, but we see this all the time. We're often subjected in science fiction or fantasy to other races that are superior to us. The Vulcans are superior to humans virtually in every way. They're stronger, they're faster, they're far smarter, they can take a lot more heat, they can take a lot more cold, they can read your mind, they can communicate with each other telepathically, they just touch your shoulder and down you go. And the Vulcans, by every measure, should be super beings, and we should be their slaves, if not certainly a Vulcan Federation, which humans are allowed to, empty the ashtrays in. But it's not that way. And the same thing with the elves in Lord of the Rings. The elves are in every way superior to human beings. They're faster, they can see farther, they're quicker, they're much calmer, they're much smarter, they're much more educated, so on. And angels, far superior to people. And yet, in all of these cases, it's a human federation, it's a human world. It's all of these cases deal with the fact that despite their flaws, their physical and emotional flaws, human beings are somehow or another better than these super beings. There's something that they're missing. The elves are missing something, and so are the Vulcans. There's something missing that humans have, and they don't, despite every single other advantage they have. It's so interesting, and that's definitely in Childhood's End. There's a book called a Heinlein book called Starship Troopers. The movie was just a joke, but the book itself is absolutely terrific, and the politics in Starship Troopers is really sound. It really just makes so much sense to me. Let's see what else. There's a book called Forever War. I think that was Haldeman who wrote Forever War. That's a terrific book, kind of an ongoing space battle book. Philip K. Dick is terrific. Clarke is terrific. Haldeman's really terrific. And I would just say shop around and see what you like. There's a lot of people who are putting comments here in the comment section, and I think my favorite sci-fi story, probably in terms of reading, was probably Childhood's End. Starship Troopers is it's just so much fun. Anyway, it's out there. And I haven't had a chance to read any of the new stuff. The last sci-fi book I read was years ago, and I don't remember who wrote it. It was called In the Court of the Crimson Kings, and it was an alternate future kind of book where there were actual Martians on Mars. And the thing I liked about In the Court of the Crimson Kings was twofold. First of all, the Martians have a completely biological technology, and they got into a lot of detail with that. They go into this one abandoned building, and they're almost killed by these rampaging creatures, and it turns out that they were feral engines, that these were creatures that had been used to turn cranks to run some of the machines, and they'd escaped from their vehicles and had lived in this building, and they were just eating things. They're feral engines. It's cool. They had biological goggles. They had biological everything. And the other thing I liked about In the Court of the Crimson Kings was this culture was very old. I don't know if it was 10,000 years old. It might have been 100,000 years old. It was ancient, homogeneous culture. Imagine Chinese culture had lasted for, had lasted for 5 millennia. So the thing about that was when you have a culture that homogeneous for that length of time, they communicated in such subtle ways. It would be like a little tilt of a head, the slightest movement of their hand from their hip to their thigh, the little itty, tiny. Everything was so perfectly kabukied out, was so perfectly non-verbally communicated in these traditions and these etiquette paths had been there for millennia. I thought that was very, very cool too. But anyway, those are a couple, and hopefully you'll go look and you'll find some more.